There's a particular kind of silence that arrives before someone returns. It doesn't announce itself with messages or notifications. It moves through your body first, like a change in temperature you can't explain, like the air in a room becoming heavier for no reason. For you, Leo, it often starts in the chest. Not anxiety exactly, more like a quiet pressure behind your ribs, as if your heart recognizes a familiar footprint long before your mind catches up, because your intuition doesn't come in whispers the way people expect. Yours comes like sunlight hitting the same spot on the floor every morning, steady, undeniable, impossible to argue with. You don't guess what's coming. You feel the emotional weather shifting. You sense when a story that once closed is starting to loosen its seams. And lately, there's been a feeling that someone who once walked away as if your love was optional, has been circling back in their own mind. Regret doesn't always look like tears. Sometimes it looks like restlessness, like sleepless nights, like a sudden urge to check on the one person they pretended they didn't need. If you've been carrying this sensation, this strange knowing that something is approaching, stay close to this channel. Subscribe to Leo Zodiac if you want guidance that honors your heart and your boundaries. And tell me this in your own words. Are you feeling peace lately? Or are you feeling a storm trying to return? Leo, you are ruled by the sun, and people misunderstand what that means. They think it's about attention, about being seen, about pride. But the sun is also truth. The sun reveals what people try to keep hidden, and when someone leaves you, they don't just leave a person, they leave an entire light source that was warming parts of them they didn't even realize were cold. They leave the steadiness of your devotion. They leave the way you show up when you love, fully, loudly, with your soul uncovered. And at first their freedom feels like relief, because responsibility always feels heavy to someone who never intended to hold you gently. But regret has a way of ripening, slowly, quietly, like fruit that looks fine on the outside until you press it and realize it's soft with longing. They didn't regret it when they were distracted. They didn't regret it when their ego was being fed. They didn't regret it when they were surrounded by noise. They regret it when the noise ends. They regret it when the late nights turn into empty mornings, when they realize they keep reaching for the same kind of connection and it keeps tasting like nothing. When they meet people who are attractive but not safe, exciting but not real, available but not devoted, and then the memory of you starts to glow in their mind like an old song they can't stop replaying, because the part of them that truly felt loved by you is still alive. And you, Leo, you feel it first. It may show up as dreams that feel too vivid, as if someone is standing at the edge of your subconscious, saying your name without speaking. It may show up as random memories surfacing for no reason, your laughter, their apology that never came, the way you kept trying to explain your heart to someone who was committed to misunderstanding it. It may show up as you suddenly feeling lighter and thinking, why do I feel free today? Not realizing that energy is shifting because the bond is loosening in one direction and tugging in another. But here's the truth your spirit has been learning, Leo. Feeling someone return doesn't mean you're meant to reopen the door. Sometimes you feel it because you're being warned. Sometimes you feel it because you're being tested. Sometimes you feel it because your heart is being asked a holy question. Do you want them? Or do you want the version of yourself who thought they had to earn love? Let's talk about the kind of person who returns with regret. They are not always dramatic. They don't always show up with a speech and a bouquet of explanations. Sometimes they return with a single message that pretends nothing happened, a hey that tries to erase a whole chapter of your pain. Sometimes they return with nostalgia, sending a song, sharing a memory, liking old photos, hovering at the edges of your life like a ghost that wants to be invited back into the house. But regret is messy. Regret doesn't arrive polished. It arrives desperate to be forgiven, but still afraid to be accountable, and that's why your body reacts before your heart can romanticize it. Because you, Leo, have a generous heart, but you are not naive. You can feel the difference between someone who misses you and someone who has changed. You can feel the difference between someone who wants access and someone who wants to repair. You can feel the difference between a person who is lonely and a person who is ready. Your soul has been upgrading, and with every upgrade, your standards become less about control and more about clarity. You didn't come this far to be a lesson somebody repeats. Think back, if it's safe to do so, on what it felt like when they left. Not just the facts, but the shape of the pain. The way you held yourself together in public while your private life felt like a room after a fire. The way you kept your dignity because you couldn't bear the thought of them seeing you fall apart. The way you tried to be strong, even when strength felt like swallowing your own grief so nobody would call you too much. Leo, you are often the one who stays composed while bleeding quietly. And that is why it hurt the way it did, because your love was real and it wasn't handled with reverence. Maybe they called you intense. Maybe they called you dramatic. Maybe they told you that you wanted too much when what you wanted was basic: honesty, effort, loyalty, presence. Maybe they loved the way you made them feel, but they resented the fact that love asks for maturity. Maybe they wanted your warmth without the responsibility of protecting it. And you tried. You tried to explain. You tried to be patient. You tried to be understanding. You tried to make your needs smaller so they wouldn't feel pressured by your devotion. But love doesn't thrive when one person keeps shrinking to keep the other comfortable. So your spirit did something sacred. It began to pull your energy back. At first it felt like heartbreak, then it felt like rage, then it felt like grief. And then, if you've been healing, it started to feel like a quiet return to yourself, like you were walking back into your own chest after being away for too long. That's what transformation looks like for you, Leo. It isn't cold. It isn't bitter. It's radiant and firm. It's the moment you realize your heart is a throne and not a waiting room. And now as you stand in this new version of yourself, the universe often sends a test dressed as a familiar face. Because when someone returns with regret, it's not just about them. It's about you. It's about whether you still confuse intensity with destiny. It's about whether you still believe love means trying harder. It's about whether you will abandon your healing just to prove you are worth choosing. Some returns are not blessings. Some are echoes. And Leo, you can love someone and still not let them back in. You can forgive and still move forward. You can wish them well and still keep your life protected. The sun doesn't chase the planets. It stays in its center, it shines, it remains. That's your medicine. So if you're feeling this energy, this sense that they're coming back, pause before you respond to anything. Pause before you imagine the apology you've been waiting for. Pause before you let your inner child run to the door. Ask yourself, what would it cost me to let them in again? Because your heart is not a charity. Your love is not a free sample. And the person returning, they're not just returning to you. They're returning to the version of you they remember, the one who would have taken them back even if they came back empty-handed. But you're not that version anymore. And that's where the regret gets sharper for them. Because when someone comes back and realizes your energy has changed, your posture, your tone, your standards, your peace, it forces them to confront what they lost. Not just you, but the access they had to your devotion, the way you made them feel important, the way you gave love like you believed it could heal everything. Regret shows up when they realize you stopped waiting. Regret shows up when they see you glowing without them. Regret shows up when they feel your absence as consequences, not as drama. And you, Leo, may feel this before they even speak it, because your intuition reads need. You can feel when someone is coming back to take from your warmth. You can feel when someone is coming back because they finally understand. So here's what I want you to hold, gently but firmly. Their regret is not your responsibility. You don't have to comfort the person who hurt you. You don't have to soften your boundaries to prove you're kind. You don't have to accept a half apology because you miss the good parts. Missing someone does not mean they are safe. Longing is not a contract. History is not a promise. If this is landing in your chest right now, take a second and tap like on this video, not just to support the channel, but as a small commitment to your own healing. And if you want to share something meaningful, leave one sentence. What is the boundary you're no longer negotiating? Make it simple, make it honest, make it yours. Because the real glow-up, Leo, isn't revenge, it's self-respect. Let's talk about what you do if they actually return. If they reach out, your first task is not to respond quickly. Your first task is to listen to your body. Your body is your truth teller. Your body remembers the moments your mind tried to excuse. Your body remembers the nights you couldn't sleep. Your body remembers the ways you betrayed yourself to keep love alive. Do you feel open or do you feel tight? Do you feel calm or do you feel pulled? Do you feel respected or do you feel hunted? Because sometimes the energy of a returning person feels like pressure, not love, like urgency, not sincerity, like a sudden intensity that tries to bypass accountability. And Leo, your spirit is learning to recognize that urgency is often a manipulation tactic, a way to rush you back into a dynamic before you can think clearly, a way to interrupt your healing because your healing is inconvenient to the version of them that still wants easy access. A healed Leo is not easy to rush. A healed Leo is not easy to guilt. A healed Leo is not hypnotized by potential. A healed Leo requires truth, consistency, and emotional responsibility. So if they return, watch the quality of their return. Do they name what they did clearly? Do they acknowledge the impact, not just their intention? Do they offer repair, not just romance? Do they respect your pace or do they pressure you to move on? Do they accept your boundaries without punishing you for having them? Because regret without responsibility is just another attempt to be forgiven while staying the same. And you, Leo, are not here to be someone's emotional recycling bin. Now, some of you are going to feel something even deeper. You're going to realize that the return you're sensing isn't just from them. It's from you. It's the part of you that you left behind in that relationship. Your confidence, your voice, your creative fire, your ability to trust your own instincts. It's coming back. It's knocking. It's asking to be let in. And that's why the energy feels so intense, because your spirit knows you're at a crossroads. One path says, let them back in because it's familiar. The other path says, choose yourself because you're becoming. And for a Leo, becoming is sacred. You're not meant to dim. You're not meant to bargain for crumbs. You're not meant to audition for love. You're meant to be met, to be chosen with clarity, to be loved with steadiness, to be honored, and yes, people will regret losing that. But here's the wild thing about a Leo heart. When it's truly done, it doesn't hate. It simply stops offering itself to the wrong hands. It becomes quiet, not because it's broken, but because it's finally at peace. So if they return and you feel that peace, protect it. Don't confuse peace with boredom. Don't confuse calm with lack of chemistry. Sometimes peace is what love feels like when it's not trying to prove anything. Sometimes peace is your nervous system finally trusting your life again. And if their return threatens that peace, then it doesn't matter how romantic their words are. Your body is telling you what your soul already knows. Leo, your heart is powerful, but it's not invincible. It needs to be cared for. It needs to be chosen. It needs to be protected by you first. Maybe their regret will be sincere. Maybe they will return humbled, softer, finally aware of what they took for granted. That happens sometimes. People do awaken. People do grow. People do change. But your job is not to gamble your healing on a maybe. Your job is to be honest about what you require now, and what you require now might be more than what they can offer. That doesn't make you cruel. That makes you clear. And clarity is love. So let's bring this into a spiritual lens, because that's where your strength becomes even more beautiful. When someone leaves a Leo, they often underestimate the spiritual consequence of taking light for granted. Not in a petty way, in an energetic way. Because when you love, you don't just love with emotion, you love with presence. You bless without even trying. You stabilize, you encourage, you believe in people. You see their potential, you speak life into them. And when they walk away from that, they often discover that life feels colder. Not because you cursed them, because your warmth was doing more for them than they admitted. So their regret becomes a spiritual reckoning. They start to see themselves clearly. They start to recognize patterns. They start to feel the weight of what they avoided. They start to realize that the love they rejected wasn't just affection, it was alignment. It was an invitation to become better. And they ran. People often run from love when love mirrors their immaturity. They run when love asks them to grow. They run when love is steady, because steadiness exposes their chaos. And then, when they finally get tired of chaos, they return. But Leo, you are not a checkpoint on their journey. You are not a place they return to when life humbles them. You are a person, a soul, a sacred heart. So if they return, let them return to a version of you that has standards. Let them meet the Leo who doesn't beg. Let them meet the Leo who doesn't chase. Let them meet the Leo who doesn't confuse loyalty with self-abandonment. Let them meet the Leo who loves themselves enough to ask calmly, what has changed? And if nothing has changed, let your answer be your absence. Because sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to reopen a wound. Now I want to speak to the Leo who is still tender, the Leo who secretly hopes the return will feel like closure. The Leo who still wonders if they were too much. You weren't too much, you were too real for someone who wanted love without responsibility. Your feelings were not the problem. Your standards were not the problem. Your need for honesty was not the problem. The problem was never your light. The problem was that someone tried to stand in it without respecting its source. And you learned. You learned how to stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You learned how to hold your dignity even when your heart was shattered. You learned how to walk away without becoming cruel. That is strength. That is growth. That is Leo energy in its highest form, radiant, soft, and unshakable. So if they return with regret, let it be their lesson, not your burden. And if they return and you feel something in your chest, something calm, something warm, something steady, then you can take your time. You can observe. You can require consistency. You can ask for accountability. You can protect your heart without closing it. There is a version of love that doesn't demand you bleed to prove you care. There is a version of love that doesn't disappear and return like a season. There is a version of love that stays. And Leo, you are worthy of that. If you've made it this far, subscribe to Leo Zodiac so we can keep walking through these spiritual crossroads together, where intuition meets self-respect, where love meets boundaries, where healing becomes a lifestyle. And before you go, tap like if this message helped you feel clearer, steadier, or less alone. Now leave me a 2-word check-in that matches the version of you you're choosing today. Something like choosing peace, staying firm, heart guarded, open slowly, done chasing. Whatever is true, whatever is yours. Because your words are powerful, and this is the moment your life starts listening.